مرحبا اليوم بدي أحكي عن hospitality in Jordan. When I first arrived in Jordan, I had quite a hard time getting my head around the hospitality customs. So Jordan is very, very strong on its hospitality. You know, everywhere you go, you're being welcomed, ahlan wa sahlan, everywhere, and people want to feed you, and people want to give you lots of yummy snacks and drinks and all of these things, and they want to show you, you know, how welcome you are, basically. And it's a bit overwhelming as a Brit because it's just different in England. I don't want to go ahead and say like, oh, we don't have hospitality in England, because we do. But we come at it from such a different angle, and honestly, it feels like Jordan and England are at opposite ends of the sphere. Like you couldn't get more opposite. So the first thing on the list is loading your plate. When you go to a Jordanian home and you're invited for food, they will load your plate up like a mountain of rice, and then like 4 pieces of chicken on top, and then you've got like, so, you know, you've got enough food there to feed a family of 4 essentially. And I found this a bit like overwhelming, let's say, when I first arrived. And in England, we have this very strong kind of habit, I guess, of finishing everything that's on your plate. So you put exactly the right portion that you want to eat on your plate, and then you have to finish everything and you don't waste anything, because we have this kind of hangover from war times. It's still very much kind of the rationing and stuff that was going on then has been handed down the generations, essentially. So I would be faced with this giant plate of food and I felt obligated to finish it all. I got very fat just because I felt all the time obligated to eat all the food that was in front of me. And of course, once you finish this giant plate of food, more comes along, and you know, you've eaten probably enough for 4 people, and then the lady of the household is saying, Kulli, ma keltish, shu malik? I really did eat, wallahi I ate. But you know, you eat some more. And actually to interfere with someone's food while they are eating is also kind of, it's not really acceptable in England. So I found it very strange that I would have other people's hands like coming onto my plate, like to drop more bits of food or to load more spoons of food onto my plate. I'd find that quite difficult. Like, can you just let me eat my food? Please leave me alone. Whereas in England, a Jordanian might find it really rude that you get this tiny plate of food, because that's actually how much you need to eat. They'd get a tiny plate of food, and you know, if you ate it all, maybe the person would comment and say like, oh, someone's feeling hungry. And actually that's really rude for a Jordanian, because you should be welcoming them to eat as much as possible. So in England, what will happen is you'll get 2 sausages per person, or if you're a big man, you'll have three sausages per person, and 2 or 3 pieces of potato per person, so everyone gets the same, and then a spoonful of peas and a dribble of gravy. And then once you're eating your food, you know, they might say to you, please help yourself, like if you'd like some more. And you know, I think a lot of people wouldn't feel comfortable to go and help themselves, especially like if you're Jordanian, it's kind of built into you that the person will give it to you. If they want to give it to you, they will give it to you. Whereas you kind of helping yourself in somebody else's house, like, shoo. I heard this story about a Jordanian man who had guests coming to visit, and he was very poor, and he didn't know what to give his guests to eat. And to honour his guests, he slaughtered his only goat. Like, he had no other source of milk or whatever than this goat, and he slaughtered the goat and he fed it to his guests, and that was like the highest level of honour. Like, wow, what an honourable man. Whereas Brits will be kind of looking like, well, now you've got nothing to eat. You know, you go to a Jordanian's house and they will open the fridge to you, they will give you everything that they can for you, and there's no kind of meanness like, oh, I want to keep this for myself later. Like, they will give you the very best of everything and they will give it all to you, and that can seem kind of excessive to a Brit. The next thing is about being a guest in a Jordanian's house. So a guest in a Jordanian's house is basically like a VIP. That person is treated with the very, very best care and in a very formal kind of way. And it's not until later on in the relationship, like later on in the relationship that person might be invited to come into the family quarters, or, you know, the kitchen. Like that's hard. That's after a while. I mean, if there's women, they might want to like kind of enforce their friendship and enforce that relationship by going and helping clearing the plate, clearing the table, or going through to the kitchen, helping with the washing up and things like that. But generally, you know, the guests they're treated very formally, and you have to really honour your guests. Whereas in the UK, a way of honouring your guests is to treat them informally. So the ultimate kind of way of welcoming someone in England is to say, help yourself, like you're part of the family, this house is yours. In Jordan, you would say, you're a guest in our home. That would be the ultimate kind of way of inviting somebody into your home, like you are a VIP guest, you are a guest in this house. Actually, if you say to someone in England, you are a guest in this house, it can be extremely rude, because it means you don't have any privileges, you don't have any rights, because this is our house and you're a guest, so you mind our rules. So it's interesting to kind of look at it in that way. And equally in England, I think that sometimes foreigners can find it quite strange that a guest will come into your house. They will take it very literally that they're a guest, and that they're welcome, and they'll go and they'll look through your fridge to see if there's something to eat, you know. That's not to say like Brits are rude, but that's like, if a Brit came and did that in your house, it would mean like that they feel that comfortable, that they feel like your relationship is that kind of close. Whereas that would be really, really, really rude in Jordan. Like that would be really shameful if someone was like rifling through your fridge. You know, and similarly, like if your family visits you in the UK, of course you make an effort for them because it's your family, but like if it's your mum or dad and they stop by, they'll come for a cuppa and that's it. Like you'll have a cup of tea, maybe you'll sit in the kitchen. Like that's what I do, like with my friends. When my friends come over, we just sit in the kitchen. Like that's where the kettle is, that's where the most important thing in the house is, so we sit there. Whereas, you know, if important people, family, people who are close to you that you see every day, like your parents, your best friends and things like that, if they visit, you don't invite them into the freaking kitchen. You invite them into, you know, your living area, okay? But even then, you shower them with everything that you can. You make them feel like they are royalty in your house. And we don't really have that in the UK. Like it's a lot more laid back. What would you like? This is an expression that we use a lot in England. So when you first turn up at someone's house in England, that they tend to say to you, you know, should I put the kettle on? Would you like tea? Would you like coffee? We've got juice, we've got this, we've got that, and you choose what you like. Whereas in Jordan, you don't ever ask, well, not ever, but like you don't ask what the customer, you don't ask what the guest would like. You bring it out to them. And you bring it out in a certain order. So you start off with a coffee, and then you come out with the juice, and you don't give them options about that. You just bring it round and you offer it to them, and it like you kind of force it on them. And if they don't want to take something, you like, you know, take it, yalla, yeah, khudi, faddal. You know, you try and make them take it, because you wanna, you know, you want them to go away feeling full. You don't want them to go away feeling like they didn't have everything that they could have had. And you don't give them the options. So, you know, if you gave them the option, they would probably say like, oh no, I'm okay, I don't want anything. Whereas if you bring it out and you put it in front of them, you don't give them the option, you're like, take it, khodi, then they're more likely to take it, and they're more likely to kind of break down those barriers. So, you know, I really like that, because if somebody says to me, what do you want? Do you want this or do you want this? I'll be like, oh, no, whatever's easiest. And then I'll end up not getting what I actually want, because I actually wanted the Nescafe, or I actually wanted the nuts, or whatever it was. And equally, you know, if the guest doesn't want it, you just put it down in front of them, and if they don't want it, they won't eat it, and that's okay. Maybe you'll give them a little bit of a hard time about it, but, you know, at the end of the day, like you can still say that I tried to give them everything that I could. Refusing a guest and inviting yourself. So in the UK, it's really, really rude to invite yourself somewhere. Whereas in Jordan, that's what you do. You invite yourself to someone's house. You ring them up and say like, oh, I'm 5 minutes down the road. Can I come by for a coffee with my entire family? And that's adi. You have to be ready to receive those guests. Or, you know, people make their arrangements earlier on in the week. But they certainly don't like book a date weeks and weeks in advance, like they might in in Europe. Yeah, so you invite yourself to someone's house. In the UK, that's actually seen as really rude. And if you realise that you're inviting yourself, you have to apologise and say, like, I don't mean to invite myself, or like, I don't mean to be rude. You have to always wait for the person to invite you. And equally, you know, if you were to suggest meeting or something like that, or, you know, can I come over for a coffee? It's fine for the person that you're asking to say no. Like, oh, I have plans, or it's not really convenient for me today. In Jordan, it's unless there's something really significant or you have a really good excuse as to why you can't receive somebody, you always say yes. And the last one is kicking out a guest. So in the UK, you know, if you've got a guest who is kind of overstaying their welcome, it's kind of normal to like send gentle hints to the person, like, oh, it's getting on a bit. Oh, I've got an early start in the morning. That's okay. Or just to bluntly tell them, like, mate, I need you to leave because I've got plans, or I need to go to bed, or whatever it is. Like, it's a bit awkward, and it doesn't feel great when someone kicks you out, but it's also understandable, or it's understood in the culture. Whereas in Jordan, you have to do everything you can, bar standing in front of the door and like rugby tackling the person to make them stay. Like, you don't do that. But you do everything else to make them stay. You beg them, you go and make coffee, like even if they're getting up to leave, like, no, I've got the coffee, I'm making it now, see, you have to sit down. So, and you know, however long the person has been in your house, even if they've been there like all afternoon and you're all a bit sick of each other and you don't know what to say to each other and everyone's kind of staring at the bottom of their coffee. So if the person says, you know, yalla, you immediately start saying, la, bedri, it's too early for you to leave. Like, sit down. And you go and you make yourself another cup of coffee. And you're like, look, Shaif, I'm making it. Abe, you can't leave. I'm making coffee. So even if you've had a miserable time and you really would rather that they left, you still have to try and convince them to stay so that you can show how welcoming you are. So I hope that you enjoyed this week's video. If there is anything that you feel like I have missed out or anything that I've kind of glossed over, then do tell me in the comments below, and let me know about your experiences with Jordanian and English hospitality. Ma'a salama, guys.